Welcome to Cosmic Comics, Games and Collectibles, your zen of geekism. We carry comics old and new, magazines, toys, games like Pokemon, Magic, D&D. Want Godzilla, Ultraman, Star Trek, Ninja Turtles, Funko Pops? You'll find it all here. Shop our Cosmic Sound Room and pick up a record or two. Enjoy our Comic Coffee Lounge with a cup of Sasquatch coffee while geeking out over a super cool movie on our big screen. Cosmic Comic, Games and Collectibles. Superman loves us, and so will you.
Hi everyone, Jason Hunt here, inviting you to join us every Saturday morning for news, the week's headlines in science fiction, fantasy, horror, comic books, video games, plus Comic-Con updates and the weather, and the occasional interview along the way. We call it Good Morning Multiverse. We hope you join us every Saturday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern, 10 Central, right here on Sci-Fi for Me TV.
Okay, everybody. I am RJ Carter. It's the LCS guys. I've got Michael Tierney with me. Michael, how you doing tonight?
Doing great. How are you doing there, RJ?
I'm doing well until you put it into my head before the show that now I've got to find a new theme song.
Saturday night, it's all right for fighting, especially on a Friday night.
Yes, well, we get an early start on our Saturdays. I mean, basically at the 4:30 tick of the clock, it's Saturday.
It's Saturday somewhere in the world right now. So
this is true. If you fly far enough in the right direction,
just
cross that international date line. Oh, well, we got Mike Walters in the chat out here, has liked and shared the live stream. We, of course, encourage everyone to do that. I never say that enough. That's how you become successful in podcasting, Mike, is you are able to say without even thinking, be sure to like and share, submit, hit that, smash that like, hit the bell, and share and subscribe. Share this out with everybody else. Let's see how not easily it rolls off my tongue, because I'm not practiced at it. I'm not glib at that. And that's why, after 6 years, we're closing in on 2,000 subscribers instead of having 150. And, a revenue stream.
Yeah, well, we just need to get more controversial.
Well, yeah, let's get in the fight. We can do that.
That's it, yeah. Hey, did you hear about the new Black Panther? It's a white guy from South Africa. That ought to do something.
That would do it. Yes. Yeah. Yes. I don't know. Did you hear about the new superheroes from DC Comics?
No, I hadn't. And
you never will, because because David Zaslav has taken the axe to Warner Brothers right and left, and the scuttlebutt is that the accountants at DC Comics are nervous.
Even the accountants are nervous. Now, when the money counters are worried, like, oh man, I'm one of I'm just counting the pennies, and they may not have any pennies to count. Uh-oh.
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, you've heard about what's happened to the movies, of course.
Oh yeah, yeah. We $90 million movie. Yeah, just throw it in the trash can. We don't want to spend any more money on it.
Well, they had to spend another 90 on it to get it ready to go.
Right. Yeah. And so I heard that the advanced screenings was pretty bad. But when you're looking at a lot of the stuff these days, I mean, it's like we were talking about how awful that Obi-Wan Kenobi was. I mean. I tried watching it, and you got to be a real die-hard fan to say, yeah, that was a great show. Because it was obviously, and I was talking about this last time, obviously they just took what was going to be a plot for a movie, said, oh, let's just make it a miniseries. Let's just stretch it out. And it didn't work.
I have a copy of Obi-Wan Kenobi that somebody who is very skilled and talented at working with videos realized the same thing you're saying and said, well, let's not make it a miniseries. Let's make it an hour-and-a-half movie. And it plays much better.
Oh, I bet it does. Yeah, get rid of all that wasted time. I mean, yeah, it just didn't flow well. And have you ever noticed too? I know it's like how bad white guys come off on all the shows now. I mean, even in there, I mean, the white guys are always an idiot, a stumble bum, or the problem. Everywhere you turn, it's like, gives a little credit, maybe a little help to Neil Gaiman to get his Sandman renewed. I want to see it renewed, even though it didn't connect with me real well. But did you notice they had another episode thrown on? When they first released it, it was 12 episodes. Well, then all of a sudden they released a 13th episode. So I was scrolling through Netflix one night. I was like, what do you mean new episodes? They talk about the whole thing. Like, no, there was another episode. It was half animation, half live action. Yep. And it wasn't that bad, of course. Both bad. Actually, there were three bad guys, all three of them white guys. So,
well, but at least the last white guy was a feminist writer. I mean, his favorite writers were all Shirley Jackson, and he said he was a male feminist.
Who are you talking about now?
I'm talking about the guy who kept Calliope prisoner.
Okay, so you did see it. Okay.
Oh yeah, and those were I kind of expected those to show up like that because they were single issues that happened in between the longer arcs. He would do an arc and then he'd do a one and done.
All his stories are well told. Good stories, and I'm just not any characters I can embrace. Like, yeah, that's my person. Like say, it just if there's anything to embrace, and they're like, okay, you're a bad guy. I kind of get tired of hearing that.
Yeah, I'll say this: the stories follow the books as closely as they can.
Mm-hmm.
Even with the casting changes. I mean, the casting changes just serve to take you out of the story every time they happen.
Mm-hmm.
Because, we all knew going in that they had cast a different race character for Death, We're like, wait a second, she's always been this pale goth. That was her iconic look.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
think that was the biggest change. Once she's on the screen, it's like, okay, we expect this. We're used to it.
Good job. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with her. Yeah.
But then Rose Walker was a black woman. Unity Kincaid was a black woman. There were others, and it's like they still acted well, but every time you saw it, it's like, I'm sensing a pattern. This is taking me out of the story here. That I have these changes that keep hitting me that were not really done for a good reason, not for story reasons.
See, most of my knowledge of Sandman is through osmosis because I sold all the comics as they were coming out. I never was a reader of them, though. I mean, I wasn't a fantasy guy. And so it wasn't a series that really connected with me. I knew it was well done. I hear my customers talk about it. Of course, as a retailer, sometimes when you finally get to see a movie, it's like you've already seen it twice because everybody tells you one thing. Well, 50 people tell you one thing. You've heard every key point twice. And that's the way it was with Sandman. It's like, it feels like I've already seen all these stories or read all these stories because I had so many people telling me about them. So he's a good writer. But I even with me, not even being a reader, it's like, that's not right. That's not right. Lucifer, that's a dude, and different things like that.
Yeah. The hardest changes were ones that they apparently couldn't get around because it was Netflix and HBO Max, and specifically J.J. Abrams and Bad Robot have the rights to John Constantine for a film. And they couldn't use John Constantine in those episodes where he shows up. Apparently, they couldn't use Jack Kirby's Sandman either, because that was a big part of one of those stories that was in comics, and they had to totally play around with that. I mean,
Jenna Coleman. I mean, if you're going to have to get rid of a character and replace it with a woman, hey, I'm down with that. I always like Jenna Coleman.
You know what? She could have played Sandman, and I'd have been happy with that.
Yeah, she's got a great smile, and she's a good actress too. So so I didn't mind the Jenna Coleman. So sometimes you'll trade things off.
Oh, I got mail today, Michael. I got a package, and the tape kind of gives it away.
Okay,
so I know what's in here. They got the Pocus Hocus branded tape on here. So this is from our good friends Will Radford and Alan Dunford. And I'm going to open this up now, live on screen, because this is a big box. And it's heavy. So I'm kind of curious as to what's in it because I'm a cheapskate. When it comes to crowdfunding books, I'm like, what's the minimum I can do to get the coolest thing on there? Where's this? Oh, it's going to seal down here on the bottom.
This was a Kickstarter you supported.
Yes. This is Indiegogo. Was it? You know what? You're right. It was a Kickstarter.
Okay. Those are the two good ones.
Yeah, I tend to do Indiegogo most of the time, but lately I found that I'm really supporting a lot of Kickstarters, more than I expected to.
Yeah, well, my Wall Stars have been offered both ways, and it's two different crowds. I mean, it's not, like there's a lot of crossover.
Yeah, and all right, so I got a T-shirt with the Hocus Pocus character on it in red.
Might want to go full screen, you can see it better.
Yeah, you know what? I'll do that, but then I've got to do this. I got to take that off, and I got to do this.
There you go.
So, yeah, there we go. This is a tarot card of Pocus. And Horace the Rabbit behind him there, it looks like. Very, very magical kind of thing. Does it have it doesn't have, it says the Magician at the bottom of it. So it's got the tarot thing there. And then on the back, it has the comic logo. So people know where this came from. So I've got something to wear this weekend.
Yeah.
And then I've got, oh my goodness. Okay. So I've got issue 4, which is what I ordered. This is the Pocus Hocus issue, and I know that if I look at this on my phone, I'm gonna take it out of here. Oh, I've got the Prince in here too. Prince with a T, not Prince with a CE. There's no royalty in the bag. I'm gonna take this out so that kind of removes some of the glare, and I'm going to open up an app on my phone if I can find it. I know I have it on here. There it is. ArtVive. ArtVive is an app on the phone that I was told about by the guys who do the comic. And apparently I don't have the right cover.
Oh, great.
Okay.
Well, you tried.
I did try. There's always one of the covers that is animated whenever you look at it through the art feed, and they don't tell you anywhere that it's that way. I learned about it through the grapevine, so to speak. But then I also got this cover here, and this is the collected 1 through 4 in the trade paperback. So this is something I can sit down and put on my shelf and read more frequently than the books themselves. And in the back, you saw the trailer we ran. They are also the people who are doing Grandma Chainsaw. So Evil has a perm this winter. So that's going to be, well, it's one that I'm going to be looking forward to getting. And now we're back.
Well, if Grandma Chainsaw invites you to the sleigh ride, it may not be spelled the way you think.
Exactly. Oh man. So thank you, Alan and Will. Appreciate that. Can't wait to read. Well, trade secret. I've actually read issue 4, but I read it electronically. I had the PDF for review purpose. And there's news about Pocus Hocus that I don't know if has been solidified yet. So Alan, if you watch this on replay and you get nervous, I'm not going to say anything yet because I don't know that you've come out with it and told everybody. So I get secrets. people share things with me, Michael.
I mean, there's $1,000 bills hidden in random issues, and don't get me started.
You didn't hear that from me, but you didn't not hear it from me either.
Okay.
You might be the selected backer that would find one. Amy, how you doing tonight? Good to see you in the chat. Appreciate you popping in here. Amy is she's married to Keith Gleason, who does the Mighty Mascots comic book, and Keith is the first person I've ever had on the show who actually took one of my crazy ideas and said, "Yeah, I'll do that."
Okay.
Because I'm always saying, hey, you should make a print of that, or you should do a T-shirt of that, or this would be a cool add-on. Mighty Mascots is a fun title. It comes from Alterna, and which publishes books at $1.95 cover price because he prints on newsprint.
Oh yeah, paper is the biggest cost.
Yeah, it is. But there was the premise is that there was an accident with radiation in a 3D printer, and all the serial mascots came to life. And now he's like, no explanation, but it's this way worldwide with a lot of other mascots too, and we're just not going to explain it. It just is. So you got Captain Horatio Honeyflakes and Boxer Bear and all these other characters that are familiar but different. And I said, you know what you should do? Everybody does trading cards, which are like this wide, and everybody does bookmarks, which are like this tall. It's like, you should make a bookmark that's this wide and this tall and design it to look like a box top. And yes, I saw the box top today. He did such a great job on that. In fact, I'll find that later and bring it up because I said, not only should you make them like collectible box tops, but like several issues down the road, you could say, hey, we got a really cool thing. And if you collected box tops, you can turn them in and get it. Just like we did when we were kids. Remember, save 3 box tops and 25 cents and send them in for some cool plastic prize that the cereal companies would give away.
Yeah, I know. I remember all those things that you used to be able to, get so many clip and send them in. Of course, to me, I think I tried doing a couple of things like that, and I never got my rewards. So like, I forget that all that work, you don't get rewarded. Yeah,
that's a lot of cereal to eat for nothing. I hear on the old time radio network, Radio Classics on XM. They play Superman all the time, and they'll always break into the middle of Superman, and they keep the old commercial, and it's like, send your name and address and 10 cents to this PO box. I'm like, what if that PO box is still taking mail? Get my Superman of Tomorrow collector's membership card.
My Dakota ring.
Yes, remember to drink your Ovaltine, people.
I got messages to decode.
Yes. So, what is going on in the retail world of comics these days, Michael? Because I'll be honest, I have not heard much of anything lately.
There's been nothing really big going on. I mean, it just, they're still coming out. I mean, there's Independence slugging along. Marvel, they're doing okay. They're keeping the product going again. And DC is just withering on the vine. They only got like a handful of monthly ongoing titles. Everything else is miniseries and one shot, and
Well,
they just don't sell. And people,
I hear more Batman is on the way.
Oh, there's always more Batman, but guess what? All Batmans are not created equal, and even Batman himself, I've seen him just lose literally half his readership in the last couple of years.
Well, I'm not so sure that making Bruce Wayne the latest victim to the bisexualitis that's infecting the DC universe was such a great idea.
I've got a portion of my customers who, have other tendencies than maybe the majority of us. But why do you make the majority of people have to read something that's targeted at a really tiny audience? I mean, that's not good marketing. I mean, you can create content for everybody, but you don't make everybody have to read the niche market stuff. I mean,
well,
we're
funny
not
that
all
you say
Powerpuff
that.
Comics, are we? Remember when Powerpuff Girls came out? Okay, everybody's reading Powerpuff Comics now. Every comic, Superman's, he's one of the member of the Powerpuff Girls. What the hell? You got to give people a variety. Different audiences like different things, and you can't try to force feed. You must watch all this, or there's something wrong with you. No, it's my dollars do my speaking. If I'm not buying it, you ought to be listening to what I'm doing. Because it's like I have seen so many of my customers just disappear. Like SpiderMan used to be like the gold standard of Marvel. With great power comes great responsibility. Now it's like, oh, wait a minute, we don't want to have him married to Mary Jane, but it'd be evil to get a divorce. That would be a sin. So we'll have him make a deal with the devil. That's a lot better.
Much better.
Yeah, we talk about just wither away the readers. I mean, he's still got following, but it's a fraction of what it used to be.
Yep. Yes, Mike Walters. I've seen several of those giveaways in the comics. In fact, all those advertisements when I was a kid back in the late 70s, early 80s, I sold Grit, the newspaper. You remember they always advertise that. And every summer I sold American flower seeds door to door. And I'll tell you what, those purple cornflower seeds were the last to go, and they were the hardest to get rid of.
Purple
but eventually, yeah, it was weird. But it's funny that you say go for the bigger audience, because apparently some of the people who got let go from HBO Max and HBO, their biggest complaint is that Zaslav, he's going to target middle America. Can you imagine? he wants to make shows that middle America wants to watch. I'm like, hey, fat wallets matter.
Yeah. Just give the majority of people something to watch. I mean, you don't have to stop making content for certain people. I mean, everything just goes to extremes. Like it's like when comics were all ages, and they were ignoring the older reading audience, the mature reader. And then they said, hey, here's a whole new segment. Now it's all for them, and they just completely ignore entry level and kids and this and that. And then they wonder, well, how come our readership's shrinking? Well, you're not appealing to new readers. It's so easy to diagnose, so logical to make a few adjustments, and they just won't do it. They're like, no, we're going to get this round peg in this square hole, whether we have to trim it or not.
DC had it for a while when they had the DC line and they had the Vertigo line, and very seldom did the twain ever meet. I think I don't even know if Swamp Thing was Vertigo at the time when they did Crisis on Infinite Earths and they had that special crossover episode there. But the more Vertigo titles came out, and I'll be honest, they got weirder and harder to comprehend as time went on. But they still sold because that was the new market they'd found. There was apparently people out there who wanted to read something weird and off the wall. Grant Morrison's Doom Patrol, The Invisible, Transmetropolitan. Didn't appeal to me as much as Sandman and Swamp Thing and Animal Man did, but they were bringing in new customers. They didn't say, oh, look, Transmetropolitan is selling out the door. Let's make every DC character shave his head, tattoo their eyeballs, and speak non-comprehensible smatterings of English.
Yeah. Now I can't remember who. There was a certain what was the name of the woman who's always running that Vertigo line? She ran it for a long time.
Karen Berger.
I couldn't think of her name. Now, didn't she file like a sexual harassment charge against somebody, and then she got let go? And Dan DiDio said, I'm going to take over her job. And then after all, I said, oh, we don't even need the Vertigo imprint anymore. I mean, just real self-destructive tendencies.
I don't recall that there
I
was
don't know
one.
if she was involved on that or not. I mean, it all happened about the time that was going on. And I don't know if she was involved in that or not. But yeah, they just watch companies implode. You get a few people in control, like everything's gonna be my way, and I don't care. We're just gonna do what I tell you. And it kind of reminds me of a bungee manager. What a bungee manager is. He comes in, changes everything. Look at all the changes I made. Then he bounces out, go do something else.
Bounces out. Yes. I can't find anything specific about that on the internet. I would think that would pop up. There were sexual harassment lawsuits. Eddie Berganza was the Superman editor who was let go.
And a lot of the women who complained, they got fired, got let go. And then years later, when all of a sudden news articles started being written about him, that's what we can't do with that. That's too much now. Okay. That's the wrong time. He should have been done when the complaints were made. You're not when, now we're being called on the carpet in the press. Well, now we got to do something.
Now we got to do something.
That's not how you handle things.
That's how a lot of the independent crowdfunding comics, the Comicsgate movement came out, was when that was happening with Marvel, or rather when it wasn't happening with Marvel, because there was criticism at the time on some YouTube channels by people who were getting listened to. And they're like, why is Marvel losing its direction? Why are these comic books no longer making sense? They're not following the established canon. They're getting weird. There's misspellings. There's typos, and then there's
bad editing,
contradictions. And then there was a situation where Flo Steinberg passed away, who was one of the stalwarts of Marvel's inner office there, and a picture went out with Heather Antos. And all her friends. So all the Marvel assistant editors went out to have a memorial milkshake in Flo's honor, because Flo apparently liked milkshakes. And they took the picture and they put it on the internet. And there were a handful of people who were like, oh, cute boob squad and stuff like that. And they had to say what they had to say. But the people who were making the complaints were like, oh, this might be why all the Marvel books suck. Not because they were women, but because you had this situation where all the Marvel editors were middle-aged, dumpy, white guys, and all the Marvel assistant editors were attractive, younger 20 females. Like, what's going on here?
Well, hire them for their skills.
Yes. Some of them have had like the anti-Midas touch at every comic book company they've gone to since then. So,
it's so obvious.
You want a drama, Mike? This is going to get us the drama.
Oh, I know. That's the only thing. That's why I had a customer ask me online today. Go, well, hey, do you feel like you made a mistake when you closed down your stores? Or like, hey, watching everything go swirling down the toilet. I mean, that's not the words I use, but that's what I'm thinking. Is like, I have no regrets about closing my stores, watching everything that's going on. Plus, I've been a state of Arkansas, rural state, like 5 million people, whole state. You got other stores, they've got maybe 5 million people in a 5-mile radius. Gas prices really affected my business. And whenever gas prices would go up, my business would die because, hey, you got two choices. One, you only can buy so much gas, so I can't drive to go to the comic book store anymore. And then two, like, that's a luxury buying comics, so I got to pay more money on gas just to go to work. So not only am I not going to the comics, I just got to cut out my comic habit altogether. And I'm seeing a little bit on my mail orders, but not as bad because I'm shipping them to them. So, people, it's a crunch. Everybody's having a tough time. And, one good thing is like, I remember when I first ran for public office 4 years ago, I mean, I was going around asking everybody, my constituents, my ward, going, what is it you're concerned about? What do you think needs to be addressed? Oh, they had a lot to say 4 years ago. Well, now, me and the group of people who've been running the city the last 4 years, balanced budget every year. They never had a balanced budget before. The whole time we've had a city council government and a mayor. And we've had to deal with all sorts of issues like flooding, ice storms, pandemics, the plagues. I mean, Moses is up there, just hit him again, And but we've stayed under budget. There's never been a council that was under budget. And we've actually done things to reduce taxes, no new taxes. There were things that the previous councils had put money on, where you're all of a sudden your property taxes you're paying every year to pay these bonds, all the way back to money they been collected since 2012, just sitting in the bank and never did the projects. Well, guess what? Money won't go as far in 2022 as it would have in 2012. But what we didn't say, okay, we got to get more money now. We said, fine, we'll just deal with it and we'll adjust the plan to the money we got. So we're getting things done. I mean, there were roads that were just almost untravelable. I mean, they were just hazardous, and we've got them fixed. And so when I went around this time, I said, what are your concerns? What are your issues? Everyone's like, no, I'm good. No problems. The only thing that kept coming up was, can you do anything to keep the postal lady from taking days off? That substitute ain't too good. That was it, And so I've already won an election because nobody ran against me. As a matter of fact, there were 3 other city council people who were up. There were 3 of us altogether out of 4, and none of us had a challenger. The only people, challenging, there's one guy who had to retire for health reasons, and so you got a couple people fighting for that position. But everybody who was, going for re-election, we all won by default. I won with 100% landslide of the vote.
When nobody wants to take on the incumbent, things are good.
Yeah, exactly. And now it's not that people don't want to do it, because there's cities around us that are having issues, and you got lots of people trying to take those jobs away. And I will say that over the last 4 years, I had lots of people say, "I'm coming after you. I'm going to knock you out," when I wouldn't vote the way they were telling me to vote. But I did what I thought was right. I was like, "Hey, listen, if people don't like the job I'm doing, I'm just going to do what I think is right. If it doesn't get me reelected, I'm not here to get reelected. I'm here to do a job." Was always my thought. I just did what I thought was the right thing to do, whether it made people unhappy or not. And it's like that old adage: you can please some of the people all the time, and all the people some of the time, but you can't please everybody, all the people all the time. And so I'm just like, hey, I'm here to do a job. I'm going to do the best job I can, and if it makes a few people happy, that's the life of politics. You can't make everybody happy all the time, and so it doesn't bother me. It's like, I got real good at that with having 2 stores for nearly 40 years, because you always had people coming in. And I mean, there were times that I just tell people no, and like, I'll go shop somewhere else. Like, fine, see you. And I'd have people applauding when the guy left the door. Oh, thank God he didn't let him get away with that. So, there is such a thing as addition through subtraction. Some business you can't afford. And, there's some people. I had a guy called me up and said, "I don't like the roundabout the way it's built. I think you guys ought to build it again." All right. So you want us to spend about $120,000 minimum because you don't like the look of something. Well, I'm going to run against you. Okay. See you in November. Didn't see him.
Yeah. I was laughing the other day because I saw you had posted up a picture, and I'm like, this is the quintessential political job, which is to shovel out that one shovelful of dirt. Like you're going to dig the foundation.
I'll just drop the right back down. But now that was a pretty big deal on that. That was the Tractor Supply Company. We're going to have the largest distribution center in the United States coming into Maumelle. So
oh my God.
Yes, everybody else is hurting and they're having problems. We're having growth, and so we've got a good group of people here, and we've been doing things the right way. And I ran for office because I didn't like the way things were being done before, and but I got lucky that I got in there. Same time we got a new mayor, and he thinks a lot like I do. I mean, we don't agree on everything, but people are never going to always agree on everything. I mean, but yeah, I think we got a good group of people up there, and nobody's out for ulterior agendas or on the take. You always hear the accusations like, "Oh, you guys are just in the pocket of the developers." Like, what are you talking about? Although there is one developer who does do a lot of work out there in the city, who used to buy comics from me almost 40 years ago. And it's like, we just got a new fire chief, and he goes, "Oh, I remember going to your store to buy my comics." So it's like, I know everybody because I've sold them comics at one point in their life. If you ever read a comic, you bought it from me if you're in Arkansas.
Planted those seeds early so you could Machiavellian control the
it always shocks people how I seem to know everybody, like, how the heck? And the information sources I've got are incredible. So, and when I was running, I was knowing about things like, is that real? And 6 months or a year later go by like, "Wow, that was real. You knew what you're talking about. I thought you were just making stuff up, And so, yeah, it's nice to have a network of diverse people on all sorts of levels, because, everybody reads comics. I mean, from the trash man to
everybody read comics.
Yeah, well, yeah, they used to. Yeah, not that way more. That's when I was talking about SpiderMan. When SpiderMan was going, and with great power, with great responsibility, I mean, I had like policemen on every police force. I mean, state troopers. I mean, people, I still have people in the Attorney General's office and stuff like that. But, attorneys for the state. I mean, I had people on all levels of life. And I remember back when I first started out, before comics were cool, before, in the 90s, movies started making it cool to be a comic collector. Back in the early 80s, I remember one time I had a captain in the Air Force. He's in buying his, weekly shipment of comics. And he's standing at the counter, and all of a sudden he runs over, hides in the corner, and is cowering down. I'm thinking, well, this is odd behavior. In walks another captain of the Air Force. Walks up to the counter. I'm here to get my comics. That guy's up like a jack in the box. You read comics. That turns out these guys
Scared them both.
They worked side by side. They had no clue they were both comic collectors because it wasn't cool to say, I read comics back then. Now it is.
Yeah. Well,
been a paradigm shift in the way people think about comic collecting, hasn't there? Now it's
a lot of that's been due to the movies.
Yeah, it is.
Mm-hmm. Now, you talked about SpiderMan and the changes there. Miles Morales made a big hit, I think, when they did the Ultimate Spider-Man, and it was Miles Morales, different universe, different retelling. They struck a chord with that, and Marvel has gone multiverse happy.
Mm-hmm.
They're doing this thing now where they're trying to recapture that lightning in the bottle that they got with Miles Morales as Spider-Man. First thing they did was, well, what if Miles Morales was everybody else in the Marvel universe? So they did a Miles Morales Thor, and they did a Miles Morales Captain America.
They'll beat a character to death. Remember when Silver Surfer was super hot? Well, they just beat him to death. Now they can't even get a series going on him. I'm afraid they're going to do that with Wolverine. They did that with Punisher. He at one point he had like a new book every week, and now he can't hardly even sell one book, and he's just he doesn't have a regular title anymore. I mean, they'll literally run a character into the ground, and they'll lose the direction and lose the sense of who they are, and you just see that happen so much with Marvel. And
they're doing that now with they're doing this thing called Edge of Spider-Verse because they did that cartoon, that animated movie, Into the Spider-Verse, where it's like, oh look, here's the divorced Peter Parker with a pot gut. Who's advising Miles Morales, and Gwen Stacy shows up, and Spider-Ham shows up, and it's all the different Spider-Mans.
Yeah.
So now they're doing this Edge of Spider-Verse where it's like every issue is a different person is some form of Spider-Man. They had this very it wasn't called the Fabulous Spider-Man, but it was the Fabulous Spider-Man. I mean the big eyes had like eyeshadow, and there were like shoulder pads and stuff. Like it was a flaming homosexual Spider-Man. It wasn't just that the character was gay. It was like, he was runway model gay. So the one that's been making the rounds for this next issue is called SunSpider. And you see SunSpider swinging through the sky from the buildings. She's shooting webs out of something, but it's not her wrist. She's holding onto these rods. And I know where you thought I was going.
I thought you were there for a second. Yeah.
She's holding onto these batons, and the webs are shooting out the end of the batons.
All right.
And she's got something wrapped up in webbing on her back. And then she lands. And she unpacks the webbing on her back, and you find out that the thing she's shooting webs through are crutches, and she's carrying a collapsed wheelchair on her back because it's her wheelchair.
Yeah, that's different.
That's very different. I'm like, okay, so
people are very underrepresented in comics. They want to be inclusive of people. Well, handicaps get ignored all the time.
Yeah, but how? But Spider-Man. I'm like, how is she swinging? If you can't swing your legs to get the momentum.
Yeah.
And apparently she has this syndrome called EDS, which isn't where you're like paralyzed from the waist down. It's where you're instead it's something where like your muscles are weakened, your joints are weakened. They can be broken or bent out of shape very easily. I'm like, that's even worse.
Yeah. Yeah, you can't imagine somebody getting into a fight with that kind of disease. I talk about how handicapped people are underrepresented. It's like, what spina bifida is, right?
Yes, I do.
Yeah,
I remember one of your workers had their child.
Her daughter had that. Yeah. So I've known her since she was newborn, and So what I did is one of my Wildstar store, I had a character in there who had that, and I worked a thing like and you think about space exploration. One of the big problems in space exploration is muscle atrophy. So wait a minute, you got these people who are already handicapped, why not put them into space? Because they don't have to worry about that as much, because that's not an issue for them. And it's like a whole spaceship of scientists who are all handicapped. Of course, then you got the maintenance crew and this and that. And, they to keep things running, you got to have an able-bodied crew to keep the functions going. But, the whole crew was mainly handicapt people. And,
that makes sense.
Yeah, so the girl who was working the maintenance, she was actually a pretty smart girl, but she was like, one time when I was young, I was actually thinking about self-inflicting a spinal injury just so I could, have a chance to go to the space.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, she realized that was not a way to go. But yeah, so and there's just and I tell you what, in that same story, it's one of the things I had on the ship is like one of the big problems they have is radiation when you're traveling. And I was like, well, basically I designed the spaceship kind of like a giant dirigible, and the whole outer side of the ship is made out of water because water is perfect protection, and you need water when you're going to space because you need it for sustenance. This that. I even had livestock of fish in a certain section where there wasn't ice. The exterior was ice, and so I was like, you've got everything you need, and you don't have to worry about radiation. You don't have to worry about muscle atrophy. I mean, just seemed like it was a lot of good ideas.
Yeah, let's start a new space program up just for that.
Yeah, it's like one of my science fiction stories, the Prairie Bake comic. I was talking about there being ice on Mars and having geysers exploding of ice particles 10 years before they discovered it. And then
there was ice. Yes.
Then one of the NASA rover pictures comes back and it's showing a geyser hole pattern that almost matched with the cover of the comic. You would have thought the comic was based on the NASA, but the comic came 10 years before the NASA. I've got the pictures on my website if you ever want to compare them.
That happens. That's the third time I've heard of that happening. The second time you're probably already aware of whenever they did Watchmen and he did that scene on Mars with Dr. Manhattan and Silk Spectre. Mm-hmm. And they pull back and the glass is like collapsed in this crater in the form of a smiley face. Of course, it's the Watchmen smiley face. Well, years later, they found a smiley face crater on Mars. But before that was 2001, Arthur C. Clarke. He talked about, flying past Io, the moon of Jupiter, and that they came around the other side, and there was this huge crater impact on the one side that made Io look like this giant eyeball. And Clarke said, years later when Voyager was making its pass around Jupiter, he got a call from NASA that you're going to want to come see this.
Oh, really?
and there was, he said there was Io with a gigantic crater on that inside there that, made it look like one big eyeball looking down at Jupiter.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So I have kind of a similar type of thing, but that kind of do with the moon when trying to create artificial gravity, this and that in one of my stories. But like another one of the things I had in one of my earlier stories from about 20 years ago is I had what was called the Marzanti spike. That there was this, basically aquatic race, and the way they colonize planets, they'd send this giant rock spike loaded with all, the chemical elements they need to rewrite the biology of a planet to fit them. And then, about it's got a Hawaiian name, that spike that came through the galaxy, or not the galaxy, through the solar system just a few years ago. It's like, wow, that was just right out of my story.
Somebody's getting ready to terraform someplace, not here.
Yeah, they just missed the Earth. Like, we got a little off target.
It's not somewhere 1,000 light years away. There's like, Larry, little to the left.
That's it. Missed it by that much.
Speaking of stories that you're working on, what's been the progress since the last time you were here? Because I know you're real close to. You're only 1,700 pages away.
Well, my Wildstar 7, I've got that turned in. Editor wrote me back. He's reading it now, and he said he's really loving it. So waiting to hear back on that. And so that would run next year if he continues to like it all the way through the end. There's a Tarzan story where I reinvented Tarzan that I sent into the Burroughs people a couple years ago. Well, they finally started reading that a couple weeks ago. So, something maybe happen on that real soon. Another thing on the Burroughs front is I write that letter and used to color the Beyond the Farthest Star online strip for them.
Yeah.
And got a new artist on that. And I think we talked about that last time. I butchered his name. He's an Argentinian. I don't want to butcher it again, but Silvestri is his first name. So he's working on that. So that's going to be coming out soon. And then, of course, I finished writing that Robert E. Howard 100-year art chronology. And I'm going to be building the pages myself. And so I almost missed your show today because I was like, I want to get this all done to this certain point. Like, I got to stand up. I've been at this for so many hours. Like, oh, wow, I forgot about the show. And so I got here just barely in time. But I'm having to learn a new process called InDesign.
I've heard of that.
Yeah. And what have you heard? It is not user friendly. That's for sure.
No, I've just heard on the Ingram Spark site where we publish through. I've seen, it's like, send your PDF here or your InDesign there. Like,
right.
I don't even know what InDesign is, but I'm not going to work with it.
Yeah, I bought it a long time ago, and I all the other programs. I mean, Photoshop was able to just start up and figure it out on my own. Intuitive. This thing's not intuitive at all. I mean, I'm sure it's probably a good package once you get it all down, but and it's one of these things like you try to watch any of the tutoring things and on videos they have online. Well, they're like just so simple. It's very basic. How to make one picture, one piece of type, one picture on it. I'm wanting to make 1,500 pages in 4 books. I'm a beginner wanting to do advanced work. And so they're not giving me the information I need on the tutorials. And I've been talking to some guys on Skype, and they're too far beyond it. Like, do this. Like, it's not working. And if well, there's this other step at the very start that I should have done. But they're assuming I already knew to do that. And then you do this and that. I got to get to this first. And so I've been battling through that, and I'm kind of getting to the point of functionality where I'm actually building pages now. So
okay, because I was gonna say I know a guy who might be able to help you, who's been through the print industry and the digital industry from soup to nuts. Woody, you're not that late. We haven't closed yet, but we are coming up on the top of the hour here. That's why we're kind of talking about personal projects now. You mentioned Tarzan, and speaking of crowdfunded books, this came in yesterday. This is Zadar the Savage. I gotta tilt these books so that they don't glare as much. This is D.W. Ken. He's the artist on this one from Dark Side Media, and this was the book that he told me they went through the Burroughs Company. This was supposed to be a Tarzan story.
I remember you telling me about that. Yeah,
and it just fell apart the last instance. They said change the name, run with it. So I can't wait to open this one because given all the things that went on in the first issue, I'm like, it was good. it was like this was some good Tarzan storytelling here, and he's going to be mad. Now, of course, it's in their universe, and one of the other books that they do is Lovecraft PI. And because, of course, Burroughs and Lovecraft wrote to each other, or at least,
Robert E. Howard and Lovecraft wrote to each other. I don't know about Burroughs and Lovecraft writing to each other.
I thought they borrowed things from each other. Maybe it was Lovecraft and Burroughs.
The Cthulhu mythos. That was a shared universe they all worked in, along with a bunch of other guys.
Okay, well, they're gonna meet.
Why not?
We're gonna find out it's the same universe, and it's a much younger Howard Lovecraft PI, or I don't think his first name's Howard. Actually, it's something else, Lovecraft, because it's the World War I era story. Because they kept it, in that time frame. And it's, after the point where Zadar has already been an officer in the British Army, and he's gone back to living the pseudo-savage style, in the jungle with the loincloth, but with a nice double, split-level house built on a plantation with manicured lawns.
And a jacuzzi, probably.
Yes. And... yeah, bad things happened while he was gone. And now he's got nothing left to lose. So it's going to be interesting to see how he goes after this guy who brought bad things to his house.
The hero's journey.
The hero's journey. Well, yeah, and especially when it's like the retired hero's journey. Tarzan's already been through it all.
Yeah. And that's the whole thing too. When people are protective of the property, you can understand it. And that's one thing I was kind of worried about my Tarzan. I was basically reinvented him. I did that one short story where I completed Burroughs' Fragment, and I just tried to write in his style, do what he would do, and this and that. Solve some problems that people say, "Oh, this story can't be completed." Like, no, I think I know a way to do it. One guy wrote a negative review, like, "You didn't even read the story because you're saying I did things that you're assuming that I did. That's not what I did." And so sometimes you get people who will hate on you, and they don't even read your work. They're like, I think I know what he's going to do, and they don't even actually look at it to see what you've actually done. And so there's always going to be that. But but I kept it faithful to the Burroughs canon. Didn't mess up the canon like the guy thought I was going to. And everybody else loved it, and they couldn't even tell which part was mine and which part was Burroughs. They thought the part that I wrote was the part Burroughs wrote, and the part Burroughs wrote was the part I wrote. So I think that is a good one. And
rebooting characters is always dangerous territory because fans of something that's been established. I mean, that's like changing the origin of James Bond,
which I'm afraid we're about to see. One thing I think what they would really be fun if they did get James Bond, because they killed him off in the last movie. Spoiler.
I watched the first half and I couldn't continue on. I was like, I'm done.
It was a slow moving. I mean, it had some good elements, but it just it didn't flow like most James Bond. Usually, a James Bond movie will grab you and doesn't let go until you get to the end. This one didn't do that. It just kind of started, stop. I mean, it had some good sequences, this and that, but it just didn't have the flow a lot of their movies have, or it just grabs you. And that's the thing. Like, why do we watch Indiana Jones movies over? Once you, no matter where you go in, bam, you're just hooked to the end. And this way, the first few Star Wars were. Not the later ones, but that are the earlier ones now. But you know what I'm talking about. And so it just didn't have that flow. But what'd be nice is that way you could kind of don't completely rewrite canon again. Okay, forget everything you've seen. Kind of like, okay, James Bond's changed the way he's looked several times. Why not have his children? I mean, been around long enough to have kids who would be out and active now. So
I remember a Saturday morning cartoon series called James Bond Jr.
Yeah, exactly. Even had
pulling in a new audience.
Right. Even had a comic book that they made for him for a little while. I bought a ton of those at my stores. Boy, that was a mistake. I ended up sitting those out, but it didn't do very well. But you can even have they always keep wanting to make James Bond to a woman. What about his daughter? Or there's just a lot of different things they can.
Could be Jane Bond. There you go.
Evolve the character and evolve the mythos and said, okay, restart, reboot, this and that. I've heard Idris Elba is somebody that might be the new James Bond. He's a great actor. I like his movies. I like watching him. It's not the James Bond we know, but it just they got that rights. They can do whatever they want to with it. But sometimes you're like, maybe get a little creative.
Yeah, Woody, you're right. Bond was
illegitimate kids, like his suggestion. That could be interesting. He was
Johnny Appleseed.
Have you ever seen Casino Royale with David Niven?
I have. Woody Allen was in that, right?
Jimmy Bond, and they had all those Bonds running around. That was fun.
That was a fun movie. I mean, James Bond is kind of like Doctor Who. You get a run for a while with one, and you just change the actor, and you accept the fact that it's the same person. Right. You don't say, why does he look different? It's like they're telling more stories with the same character. They cast somebody new to play it. Soap opera's been doing it for years. New actor comes on and like, the part of Jason McElroy is now being played by, and you just go with it. You say, okay. It's like I said with Sandman. You see the new actor, you're taken out of it for a bit, and then you get used to it. Yeah, and then you get back into the story. Woody, Peter Sellers was in that movie too. It was Now, is that official canon James Bond, or was that just like a spoof?
That was a spoof. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was the first Casino Royale, and then later they did Casino Royale with seriously.
Yeah, and that's what threw me was the fact that they went back and redid Casino Royale. I'm like, well, now are they redoing it, or are they just taking the title of a spoof? I've got to watch it again because I knew it was comedy, but when it's David Niven, it's high comedy.
Yeah.
David Niven.
Andres in there. I mean, he had some good stuff.
He was master of clips. Niven. In fact, you can find it on YouTube. He was hosting the Oscars, and this was in the 70s, back when streaking was a thing.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, and this guy runs behind him during the Oscars, streaking, making his mark, and Niven, without a beat, just kind of looks back at the audience, and says, "How very brave of him to go and show off his shortcomings to everyone."
That's funny. Yeah.
And I forget he was in a movie with I don't know if it was with De Niro or Hoffman, Dustin Hoffman. But he was in a movie with one of these method actor guys who's like, had to really get into the part to be able to play the part. And the next scene called for the guy to have been up all night, unable to sleep, haggard. So the actor stayed up all night. He wasn't shaven. He was, red eyed. And there's Niven sitting in the chair, all fresh with the newspaper, looks up, looks back at the paper, says, "My dear boy, you should really try acting. It's a lot easier."
Yeah. He was a talent, and he had this. What was it called? The Rogues. It was a series called The Rogue, made in the 50s, which was a lot like basically it was a family of crooks, but they only stole from the bad guys who would hurt innocent people, and they said it right. There's been a lot of shows done like that since then, But that was the first one. David Niven was there. They had their American cousin. It was played by Larry Hagman.
Wow.
Yeah. So
I've got to look that one up now, because that sounds a lot like Leverage, which is a favorite of mine.
It was like Leverage before Leverage, exactly. And that's a perfect example of what it's like. But it was very well done. But it was done with a British attitude.
Well, yeah. So that would have been around the same time as the Avengers.
Actually, before the Avengers. This was more like late 50s, early 60s. Yeah.
Ooh. Okay. Now I'm definitely intrigued, because they knew how to make television then.
Yeah, they're fun. Yeah, they really are. And they always take the bad guys and put them in their place, because they're sneakier than the bad sneaky guys.
Well, Mike, we're coming up at the top of the hour. I have to ask, is DC's Dark Crisis still a thing? Does anybody care?
It's still a thing. They're still making them. Nobody cares.
Nobody cares. Okay. That's what I thought. I read the first one, and what got me was that even the characters in it didn't care.
Yeah, I've been hearing from so many people about how awful it is. Yeah, even the people who are buying it are like, God, this is awful.
Yeah. If you hear more people tell you that it's awful, tell them that they should switch over from Dark Crisis and get Flashpoint Beyond, because that's where the real crisis is happening of the multiverse. And Jeff Johns is writing it, and it's a much better story.
Yeah, I've got one guy who said, I want to get all those Dark Crisis, but I only want to get them when you get up to about like 10 copies at a time and send to me. I'm like, oh, gosh, when he gets these things, he may be saying, wait a minute, what do you hold these for me? I don't want those anymore. Yeah.
Hopefully he doesn't hear any spoilers about it before he makes his order.
Yeah.
That was the risk you always took with a hold file, was, people wouldn't come and buy.
Or they'd
cancel.
I remember when Superman 75 came out, and just a monster hit. Everybody wanted it. Well, then they said, okay, here comes Adventures of Superman 500, where he comes back and this and that. And everybody's like, oh, this is going to be another one, just like Superman 75. Everybody wanted it. I didn't order a single extra copy, but I had so many people just go deadbeat on the reserves to buy that thing that I had them forever. I mean, I had them just all over the place. And that's when I had to change how I did reserves. Used to, somebody said, hey, I want this book. Yeah, I'll get it for you. Then it's like, okay, you want to get on reserves? Yeah, you put down a deposit. And they're like, what? I got to put some money down to, you get it back when you make your purchase, but no, that's okay. You're like, well, okay, you weren't serious at all. Saved me a fortune. I mean, it was either quit doing reserves or make the entry a little bit harder, because people come in all the time and say, I want you to hold all these books for me, and maybe I'll come back and get them. Kind of like True Lies with Arnold, when he's driving around in Bill Paxton's car, and Paxton's been sleeping with his wife as he's driving his Corvette, and sending it sideways into the parking lot and of his car lot. And he goes, hold it for me, and I'll think about it. That's what a lot of people think about the reserve. Yeah, hold all these books for me, and I'll think about it. I actually had a guy call me. I'd closed him out like a year before. I mean, he just disappeared on me. Calls me, yeah, I haven't been in for a while. I just want to come up and go get books that have gone up in value.
Yeah. Dude, I just want to get the good stuff out at cover price.
Yeah, exactly. Or discount even, because I was giving a discount to reserves. I said, dude, I gave it to you a long time. He got all mad, started trying to cuss me out. I was like, that's nonsense. I ain't got time to waste on you. Distraction.
Exactly. Yeah. You just put a hold file on just hold everything, and then I'll come back a year later. It's like, oh yeah, that was a key issue. Give me that one for, $2.99. The one that's sold out, you can't get any more of, and you could sell them for $30 a piece.
Yeah, it was like, every time there'd be like a super hot book come out, you get all these phone calls like, oh yeah, I want to get a bunch of those just for a scalp meeting. We want to have a read along. I need about 5-10 copies of a book that's $50 right now. I just want to get them off the shelf new. I don't want to pay a collector's price. I just want to buy them new. Yeah, you get those calls all the time. And yeah, I think I told you about when the Battlewang happened.
Yes,
and I
remember that.
All these calls. I didn't think about this, but one of my employees pointed out, like, hey, did you ever notice that everybody's calling, wanting the book with Batman's penis? It's all guys. Like, I didn't think about that. I didn't have one woman say, I want to see the Battlewang. It was all guys. I was like, that's odd.
I've got the issue with that shadowy picture. I'm like, and I'm a story guy. So, I pick up a first issue of Batman anything. And if it doesn't hook me, it's like, wow, you screwed up a Batman story. How bad is that?
I had all these copies of this book. I never saw it. I mean, I didn't care to even look. It's like, fine, if he wants to show his Battlewang, that's okay. I don't care. That's not something I want to see.
Worst Batman stories to me are always the ones that try to go supernatural. I'm like, that's not who he is.
He's the detective.
Yeah, and now they're trying to get, that this story, I think, where he was being revealed as, a closeted bisexual in some ways, because this his partner in training he had feelings for, but part of the training was training in magic. I'm like, no, that's not his thing. Stop trying to make Batman everything. But I did I enjoy the old stuff so much. I went out on eBay because I saw a picture from one of the GeorgePerez.net postings on Twitter of just, cool stuff he's done. And they posted the picture of the wraparound cover to Justice League of America number 200. And it was
that's a great cover. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a fantastic cover. Justice League versus Justice League. And it was a story by Jerry Conway, and it went all the way back to the first adventure where they had, the 7 aliens that landed, and we're all going to fight each other for supremacy to see who's going to become conqueror of the planet back home. And they were all defeated by individual Justice Leaguers. Well, they had their mind controlled to go dig up those meteors that they planted because they're going to hatch again. And the new Justice League has to stop them, and they're all like, who are you people? They still think it's like a month after the original adventure. They've lost all that time because they're being mind controlled. They're like, Wonder Woman's costumes changed. What's going on? But the real cool thing about it was that they did it in chapters. So it's like, you had the wraparound framework story, and Perez was drawing that. But then you had the Atom. You had the Green Lantern story, and it's like, whichever Justice Leaguer was going to go stop Green Lantern from getting his meteor. They never stopped any of them, by the way, because otherwise the story would have ended too quickly.
Yeah.
And they had Gil Kane draw that chapter, and then they had the Flash chapter, and Carmine Infantino drew that chapter. So it was like they did this this was fan service at the time, because they knew who the best artists were for each of those superhero character stories. So we're bringing you on to Justice League to do the chapter of your hero that you're so well known for.
Mm-hmm. So they'd never do a book like that nowadays. They go, we're going to get this new kid or somebody who's never done it. We want to get their new take on it. And you get these people who don't have a feel for the characters, don't have a feel for what the fans like, and you're not taking care of the fans. You're trying to say buy what we tell you, and it don't work.
Well, now that I'm an adult collector with real money, supposedly I'm supposed to have real money. I don't know where it's at. I know where it's at. I know where it goes. But as soon as it stays here, I'm going to be better at it. But I've decided that the 2 series that were always my favorites, I'm just going to go back and I'm going to fill in the whole set, all as far back as I can. And it's going to get expensive because I want the complete run of the original Justice League of America. And I know that, and I'm going to include that Brave and Bold issue in it, because my other series is The Brave and the Bold. I want to finish that one out. I was, a huge fan of the, what's that?
A lot of key issues in Brave and Bold.
A lot of key issues. Yeah. As,
Teen Titans.
That's right. That's right. And I have that issue. I have, I have the Robin, Kid Flash, Aqualad team up. They weren't even called Teen Titans yet.
Right.
So
a lot of good stuff.
Yeah, it was fun. But I'm going to get that. And the one key issue that I missed it by that much was when I lived in North Carolina, and there was a rundown comic shop. And when I say rundown, it had books in it that were good, but the guy didn't take good care of the shop. He hadn't been taught how to run a store. From what I understand, he got a lot better at it after I'd left. But at the time, it was like unpaid bills and collection agencies walking in. Well, he had under the counter. Yeah, it was. I don't know how he stayed in business as long as he did until he straightened it out. But someone came in and straightened him out and got him going. But under the counter, and this is 1997, he had a cherry condition showcase number 4.
Oh yeah, first Green Lantern.
No, first Flash.
Flash, yeah, that's right.
First Flash, introduction of the Silver Age entirely,
Mm-hmm.
right then and there. And I came, I came back in at another time and it was gone. I'm like, oh, somebody finally bought it. And my wife was working there at the time. And she said, no. And she said, what happened was that somebody came in demanding $500. And they said, we'll be back tonight for our money. And he took the book to another store in another city, bigger store, and he sold it for $500 cash and $200 in trade because he had to have $500. Like, I would have found $500 for that book because I don't even know what it's going for today, but it's a car today, I'm sure.
Yeah, kind of like that movie frame,
that film reel, and he's running out into the film reel. It was gorgeous, and it was mint. Because we all looked at it in the case. It was like there was no chipping on the edges. It was bright colors. It had been well taken care of. But how it ended up in his store, I don't know.
But he had to have money real quick before Guido and Luigi came back for interest.
Exactly. So, he didn't get new comics because Diamond had him on COD. It's like, no cash, no delivery.
I couldn't tell you how many competitors I've had go out of business, and people try to call me up to collect their bills. I'm like, dude, I got nothing to do with them. Like, aren't you all connected? No. There used to be a comic book store out in Arizona, and people called me up, Arkansas, Arizona, and they try to collect their bills from me. Like, no. And, stores would open up and never pay for the people who custom built their shells. And, but there's been a lot of people burned by a lot of fly-by-night comic book stores that have come and gone. There's been a lot of them fail. It's one of those things that I always tell everybody, especially in times like now, I wouldn't try to open up one now because you're probably only going to get one shot at it, and you want to do it right. Like, I wanted to open up a store when I first got out of high school, like back in '73. Just wasn't a good time, and that was Nixon and the Watergate stuff and this and that. And then came Ford. That wasn't too good. Then came Jimmy Carter. Oh, it kept getting worse and worse.
Oh, you talk about gas prices, yeah.
Oh yeah, people in lines, and that was just a crazy. I remember with denim, they had the denim shortage, and jeans went up the same price that they are now. Just about, you got price jacked up so high they haven't had to change them in like about 50 years, and everything just was skyrocketing. And then Reagan came along. I know there's a lot of people who don't like Reagan, but I was in business at the time. I was reading all these different big business magazines. I was reading about all the things they were going to do. I was like, this might be the time. This might be. So 2 years of Reagan to be in office is okay. Now it's time to open up a store. You just try to pick your shots as best you can. And, that's what I did. And it was a tough go, but, I managed to survive. When I got ready to open up my second store, bam, the first month it was open. I knew what I was doing, and it was making more money than the other store I'd already had for 8 years. Just on the first month.
When did you know it was the right time to open up the second store?
Well, I had unbelievable good timing. I just had a gut feeling, and I opened up the month that the Michael Keaton Batman premiered.
Oh, yeah, you should have opened the store on every corner then.
Yeah, I just taped a Batman T-shirt in the window, and just people just be pouring in. It was just incredible. I could not have picked any. Of course, then you had the news channels wanting to do, so I was on the news. They were to do articles about Batman and Batman comics and this and that. I could not have picked a better time to open up a new location. So you got to pick your shots and try to pick the best time you can, because you talk about sometimes you hit, sometimes you don't. I remember when I had Marvel character appearances. I had the She-Hulk in my store. Oh, that was a phenomenal turnout. They just ran a picture of her in the newspaper. Had guys driving halfway across the state because they wanted to see if they could take She-Hulk dancing or something like that. And, right, slow dancing, no doubt. And but then I got cursed though with I didn't have the magic the second time when I had Catwoman. I had the last official appearance of the Michelle Pfeiffer costume Catwoman from the Batman Returns movie. And Warner's gave me a lot of trouble, and they finally said, okay, well, they kept saying, oh, you got to do the animated ones. Like, no, I got a contract. Breach your contract. So, all right, fine. You can have her, and she'll be the last appearance ever, but you can't advertise what she looks like. So I had to advertise the animated version. Well, nobody cared. I didn't have much turnout. Well, then on top of that, but I had all sorts of media coverage lined up. The day she's appearing, Bill Clinton and the Clintons got me because they had that Whitewater scandal.
Oh, boy.
Well, they didn't ever get hooked on it. The Arkansas governor, Jim Guy Tucker, they nailed him on it. And so the day all the news crews that were supposed to come cover my Batwoman event, they all went to the state capitol to watch Jim Guy Tucker being led down the steps in handcuffs. And that's when Huckabee got into politics, because he was the guy who replaced him.
Yeah, I've been a lot of stories where it's going to be the big day for the store, and some politician does something seriously stupid, and that's where all the cameras are.
Yeah, so I've learned don't do big events planned around Batman. Look what happened to all the guys. Hey, Batman's getting married to Catwoman. have parties, get cakes, put extra people on. It's going to be a madhouse. Oh, guess what? Nah, fake. Psych. When we do bury him, oh, yeah, we'll just do it in a little side story. We won't even tell you it's happening.
That should have been, to me, a bigger lashing out against the industry from the retailers than what it was. Was it? And I just didn't see it because it was internal, or
the way they beat the flashback, the flashback was they said, okay, we'll let you return them. Now, all these guys who bought cake, put on extra people, that was money lost. Yeah. And to me, I've learned a long time ago, don't believe a thing they said. If they're hyping something, it's not going to happen. If something's going to happen, they aren't going to tell you. And that's just the modus operandi that they operate under. And there's no synergy of a business partnership between the retailers and the publishers. I mean, it's like it's adversarial at the best. I mean, it's like they're not trying to make you money. It's like they're trying to drive you out. I mean, when they went digital, they thought we were all going to collapse. They never had any money to do national advertising for comics. Oh, that's the retailers got to do that for us. And we're just a little bit, multi-million-dollar company. We can't do that. And they want to do digital. All of a sudden, they had the money for advertising, and they thought every comic book store in America would collapse like a chain of tire record stores when music went digital. Well, music, it's not the delivery, it's the sound. And,
right.
So how you get it doesn't matter. Comic books, the delivery is part of it. It's a tactile experience. And
it's a collector's market.
Right. And when you buy digital, you've got nothing. And it just didn't work. But what happened was, here they're trying to wipe us all out. Well, guess what? Our sales increased because they were advertising. They'd lost all their avenues and outlets when they made comics mature. Still had the racks that said, hey, kids comics, but they got mature comics on there. So they got pulled from all the grocery stores, all the 7-Elevens. People thought they didn't make comics anymore. Well, all of a sudden they started advertising like, what? They still make it? Well, I don't want to read digital. I want to go find the real thing. And my business boomed. Everybody else boomed because they were advertising them for us. I mean, they don't really advertise comics properly. I mean, that was one of the only times. It's like Walking Dead. Buy the graphic novel at your local bookstore. They don't say go to the comic book store to get the comics.
No, they don't. They always they'll send you to Barnes and Noble to get the trades.
Right, but they don't send them to the comic book stores to buy the monthlies or the floppies, as they like to call them. Never liked that term.
Now I see that Diamond is Diamond's doing their best to keep the boat afloat now that they've lost DC. They've halfway lost Marvel. I mean, they can still do Marvel, but they still got to buy them from Penguin Random House the same way you do. So I don't know what's gained there for anybody to do that. But they've decided that basically all the people who were like the B-listers, they're like, hey, Boom, and hey, all you other guys here, we're going to give you premier spot now.
Right.
You're going to be in the front of the book. I'm like, that's sort of like saying, hey, I'm going to move you to the front of the line after the 10 people in front of line of you drop dead. Like, you don't have to move me anywhere. I'm here. You just got to give me their placemat. Give me their color code.
Well, one of the good things about that, though, this is so much being in the front of the catalog, is that now there's no longer a reorder charges when you want to order more of their books. You're not getting hit with a penalty to buy more. So, that's not a bad thing, indeed. But it's stuff
it's a good thing for them,
yeah. And it's a good thing for the publishers, maybe a good thing for the fans, too. So I don't mind seeing that. But, yeah, they're doing, Steve Jeppy retired. And
is he retired again and staying that way? Or?
No, but what happened was then when they made the announcement, we're going to stop, we're just going to shut it all down. And then they could never get it started back up again. And your DC left, Marvel left. Well, he came back and let go of the guy who was running the company for him. I don't even remember the guy's name. But that guy just ran that company into the ground. And so Steve's, he's trying to do things to get it back. But, it's like, the cows and the horses are already out of the barn. And he's trying to close the door before, they're already gone, So he's having to build again. And, right now, compared to DC and Marvel, Diamond is my third best service. I mean, the discounts aren't, they offer decent discounts. The problem with them, though, is they absolutely gouge you on shipping. The shipping is awful. Now, I will say that they've finally got them to switch me to a different warehouse. And the warehouse I'm using now, they do a great job. I mean, I'm getting good product. It's not damaged. Before, when I was closing my stores, I was getting 15 to 25% damages and shortages every single week. It was killing me.
Yeah,
it wasn't sustainable, and had a lot to do with my decision to close down. I was like, I'm just getting tired of being beat up. I'm losing money to stay in business, and I didn't see it getting any better. Now, I will say it's gotten a lot better now. The DC, I mean, very well packed, accurate orders. I hardly ever have any problems with them. And actually, when you think about it, and of course they've made the discount bad though, because now they're okay. We're going to go by what your discount that you purchased with us. Well, all the purchases are being split up between multiple distributors now, and then on top of that, they haven't been making squat that will sell. So now, now your discount's going down. And so right now, Marvel is actually the best discount because they offer free shipping. They don't give as good a discount as what you can get from Diamond, but you're not getting that outrageous shipping. Where basically, I'm breaking even with Diamond at best, and that's it. And it's just almost something that you do as a customer service. Is not a business model to survive. And they got to get back to where they're competitive again. I remember when Diamond, before Marvel was the one who collapsed the industry when they wanted to get their own distributor, and DC had to get their own distributor, and Bambi went from 7 distributors down to 1. But back then, Diamond was heads and shoulders the best distributor out there. I mean, nobody else was even close. And so if you had to pick somebody to be the last guy standing, they would have been the guy I would have picked. But, again, Steve retires, the guy just running the ground like, hey, he was just, getting lazy and, we don't care. What are you going to do? Buy him somewhere else? There's nowhere else. And,
exactly.
And we retailers paid a price, and the services got bad and everything like that. And so now here they're all the way back last, just really trailing the pack, having to play catch up again. So he's having to build it all over again. And he's got this huge infrastructure now that probably is bigger than what his product will allow for. So I'm hoping he pulls through. I like Steve. He's a friend. I'm on his board of advisors for the Overstreet Price Guide. So I want to see him do well. I don't want to see the comic book industry have less distributors. We need more.
No,
competition.
Competition's a good thing.
Exactly. Yeah.
And as a distributor, I get, calling myself that now because apparently I'm starting to do more and more of that. But I get a lot of, mass shipments from the printers, and I'll get them. They run the gamut. I'll get some that are like, a box full of shrink wrapped books in bricks of 10 or 20. And then that box is in another box.
Yeah.
So it's a double layer box. That is the Fort Knox of shipping comics in bulk.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a new printer that's coming onto the scene. They're an old printer. They've been around forever. You probably know who they are, but they basically come out and said, oh, by the way, we have trim sizes now that fit comic books. And yes, we saddle stitch. So
Ingram and Lightning Source or Brenner.
Exactly. It's okay. Ingram. But I got a bulk shipment from Ingram, and guess what? They took a stack of 75 comics. They shoved it up against the corner of the box and then just papered around the sides. I'm like, your corners are right there in the corner, and guess what? They're getting bent.
They don't do very well in their packaging. That's for sure.
Yeah, they treat it like an Amazon book or a hardcover book. So I mailed them. I'm like, hey, here's how the other people are doing it. You might want to do this when you're dealing with comics if you want to make it in comics. And I got the typical letter back, said, hey, if you have damages, just, write this and we'll send, new copies or, get deducted off your, like, you don't understand. You're not shipping out books when you do this. You're shipping out things that people want to have as a collectible item. You need to treat it differently. I don't know how Penguin is shipping to you. I know that the first week was a cluster.
Yeah, Penguin Random House, they had to learn that. I mean, the first couple of shipments were just disasters. And I wrote them a long letter, long detailed about here's all the problems, here's what you're doing wrong. I swear they listened to me. Like within 2 weeks, I was getting some of the best shipments I'd ever gotten. And it's hey, Alexander. And Penguin Random House was just a disaster the first couple of weeks, but then bam, they turned on a dime and they started packaging into boxes inside of bigger boxes. And they've been.
Do they shrink wrap or do they just have it in a fitted box?
They shrink wrap the previews. The Marvel previews is coming shrink wrapped. But yeah, I know the one you don't care about. But the comics, they're inside of a box that's inside of another box. And the same thing with Lunar with the DCs. They're inside of a box that's inside of another box with packing around that box on the inside of the box. I mean, I'm getting really good shipping. Diamond still ships away. Diamond used to have some really good boxes that were really good to recycle with and ship packages out. Well, then they went to another box that's just junk. It goes into the trash. Nothing recyclable about it at all.
Yeah,
that's what everything did lessen their services.
Yeah, is the inner box that you get from Penguin, is it like sized to fit the comic so there's like no shuffle room inside the box?
Right. Yeah. Okay. Now they're getting ready to change that, though. I'm a little bit worried about it, because now they're wanting to go to a single box, but then have a whole couple of layers of cardboard packing between the books and the exterior. But when you crunch the side of a box, that's going to go right through that cardboard packing. So I haven't had too many problems with it. Usually the only problems I've had has been when, they, put a damaged book in the box to start with. So I haven't really been having any trouble. I've got a good postal lady. I've got a good UPS lady. So I'm getting good services from my suppliers, and actually I'm getting better service than I got when I had a commercial. It's amazing. Being a home operation, you get a lot better service than you do as a commercial operation. I remember I used to complain to a UPS driver all the time. And he said, "Wait, we're told do all the home deliveries first. Commercial comes last."
Huh.
Oh yeah, they want porch pies. You got to eat.
I was going to say, you'd think to do the commercial ones first because they're open. Everybody's at work. Do the home ones last when everybody's home and can, get the stuff off the porch.
That would make sense, you would think. But yeah, that's not how UPS thinks. They put the home deliveries priority.
I don't understand how a lot of stuff. I don't understand how the airlines work. I'm like, I've flown enough times to know it's like, if you're flying first class or business, you may board now. And they're the first ones on. I'm like, I don't want to be the guy who sits in the front of the plane and then has to have every other person in the plane go past me and bump me with their luggage and stand beside me. And they're all hot and sweaty. I'm like, if I paid for first class, I think that means, okay, we're all done with the hubbub. You can walk on peacefully and take your seat right there in front, and you don't have to deal with people. That would be service. It's like,
yeah. So, but like I said, the comic book industry right now, they're treating stores better than they have in a long time. But it's fractured. A lot of different distributors. The discounts are getting worse all the time. And you throw that onto an environment where all the expenses, everything keeps going up. All the operational expenses going up. The wages going up. The workforce going down. I mean, the quality of workers. I mean, it's just people right now are just like, hey, pay me a whole lot of money and I'll show up maybe, but that's it. I'm gonna be on my phone.
They're at the minimum wage, minimum work.
Right.
They
want a wage to buy a house, a car, and raise a family of 5, but give you minimum wage work, and not even that. So yeah, I remember I had work for one time. I told her half a dozen times, "Hey, stop, get off the phone, get back to work." Well, I just took the phone out of her hand. Oh, she was mad. But guess what? She didn't do it so much anymore. So yeah, you got to be the bad guy as a boss. Everybody's like, "Oh, bosses are terrible. Oh, we're evil." No, we're just trying to make a living, and we're the last guy in line. And so everybody's going to get paid before us. And so we're not just raking in money or getting rich. I mean, there's always the joke about the guy digging a ditch hole, and the boss shows up in a Maserati, and the guy's like, "Wow, that's quite a car." And the boss is like, "Yeah. And if you work all your overtime every day, don't take any days off, don't call in sick, I'll be able to buy another one next year." Nobody driving Maseratis.
No. Did you get rid of all your inventory when you closed the stores, or have you got that warehouse somewhere? I mean, I know you're selling books on eBay, so you got a stash somewhere.
Well, what it was, I'd already started doing eBay sales before I closed down the stores. So I just had to make a shift just right at the right time. And so I had a certain segment of inventory I already had, pigeonholed that this is going to be my eBay store. And so I kept that, but I sold all the other stuff for the price of a song. I mean, pennies on the dollar. It is a shame, but it would have cost me so much money to store it. Would have cost me money to have people work it. I've thought about it. It's like, I couldn't have done any better if I kept it. Any money I would have made, I would have lost in all the expenses of trying to keep it. Because I had 500,000 books.
That's a lot.
Yeah. Well, 40 years it builds up.
Half 1,000,000 books. I'm thinking there's 200 books fit a long box. 500,000 divided by 200. Hey Siri, what's 500,000 divided by 200?
500,000 divided by 200 is 2,500.
2,500 long boxes.
Sounds about right. Yeah.
You could build a house out of long boxes like if they were Legos. Just like a labyrinth
with that. Yeah. So
I've often thought about building furniture out of my long boxes. Just arrange it like a chair and then upholster it, and then just I can pull the upholstery off when I want to get to a comic, put it back on.
Yeah. Who put the X-Men underneath the turntable?
Oh. Yes. Now I can't get to it as easily.
Yeah.
All right.
Now the record skips.
Well, Mike, I'm going to spend the rest of the night trying to find a Friday night song now for our new theme song since we're on the new night for convenience. I mean, you said it was easier for you too. So
Yeah, Friday actually works better for me. And I almost missed it. I forgot. I gotten used to the Saturday schedule, and I was working away on building those pages on that Robert E. Howard chronology and this and that, and So and I see P. Alexander joined us there, and so I'm wondering if he's had a chance to read that Wild Stars 7 yet. So get it finished. So
well. I know that he does a great job with Kursova magazine. I know a lot. You're not the only person in that book that I know personally. So
well, people really give it a lot of credit. I mean, they're calling it like the second coming of Weird Tales and Planet Stories, and that's pretty high compliment. So when you read the reviews they get, I mean, it's really great reviews, and people are really enjoying it. We're giving people what people want to read: fun stories, good adventures, and just no political agendas, just good literature.
Stuff that's been missing for way too long.
Yeah.
So yeah, folks, make sure you put Kursova magazine, Cirsova, on your checkout list if you're a sci-fi reader or a sci-fi fantasy reader.
Yeah,
and you guys you guys go from flying saucers to barbarians with swords.
Yeah, they cover all the gamut in between. It's like all the best stuff from a pulp magazine all in one place there, and you can buy them on Amazon, either for the digital if anybody wants to do that, or you can buy them in a trade paperback, or if you go over to Lulu, you can buy them in hardcover. And he's got some pretty good artists on there. I mean, like Anton Oxneck, who did the wraparound on my Wild Stars, omnibus book. He did a fantastic job. And yeah, like he said, we got everything. And he did the historical adventure coming up. Yeah, he ran one of my historical adventures with it was called The Bears of 1812, and basically it was set right in the history of the War of 1812, and a mixed Sacagawea in there, and it's so funny because there's a lot of wild stuff happened. A lot of people thought I was just making it up. Like, no, that was actually historical events. And Sacagawea, I got a chance to do a lot of liberty because nobody knows what happened with her. But yeah, he's got great carver artists working for him, and so some good fun stuff. And he's even ran a comic book series. Yeah, got Mark Pellegrini. He's been
Mark Pellegrini. For people watching, you know who Mark Pellegrini is. He's half the team of Iconic Comics on the Common America series, which is just burning up the crowdfunding scene every time they put out a book. It's you want to talk about money? Every time they put out a Common America book, Tim Lim buys a new Maserati.
He's the guy buying those. Okay.
Yeah, he's the one who buying the Maseratis. But he's putting in the work too, along with Mark and Doug Ernst with his Soul Finder.
Yeah, doing good work. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. Like good variety of stuff there. So I think there's a little bit of something for everybody. And he also ran some comic books. There's a series called Bad Axe from I think late '80s, early '90s, and he got the permission from the creator to run it. And so he had a 3-issue sword and sorcery type of horror mystery. Sword and Sorcery really describes it, setting it ran in 3 issues. And so you had that in there too. So got comics. He's getting illustrations inside of them now. So he's got a nice package. I think you'll like it. If you haven't checked it out.
Cool. And of course, one of the things that Kursova magazine carries is the chapters of the Wild Stars and of course the full-blown novels of the Wild Stars. If you want to check out all of those Wild Stars by yours truly, Michael Tierney, do click the link below the video that will take you to thewildstars.com, where you can find the Wild Stars. You can find She-Hulk videos. You can find whatever is being voted on at the Maumelle City Council. Everything that Mike does is there on his website. You might have to search a little bit to find the books.
Yeah,
they are.
I've got a pretty busy website. I get anywhere upwards to 275,000 hits a month. So I've got some pretty good traffic coming in on there.
Yes, you do. I one of these years I'll have made that many hits in a year on criticalblast.com. Cheap plug.
Yeah.
So Michael, thank you again for spending an evening with us and talking comics and fantasy and the business in general. Folks in the chat, do appreciate you being here and listening in with us tonight. We don't have a show if you're not here. We're just a podcast falling in the woods. And of course, as always, while you were here, we just hope you had a blast. Good night, everybody.